Is immortality a state of consciousness? Welcome back to this new inspirational video. Today I wanted to talk about the concept of immortality from a spiritual perspective, because physically speaking we're all aware that things come and go. You must have family members that already passed on, or maybe not, but eventually you will. I've had family members and even other people that I've known about who passed away, so clearly there's evidence that physically speaking we're not immortal. But are we spiritually speaking immortal? Is there a part of us that actually is eternal? And if so, we should learn about it. We should discover more of its mysteries. Now I have a document here with some points that I want to go over for this video, and maybe it can shed some light on what is possible for you as well. What is actually your destiny. I think the easiest way for me to try and convey the mystery of immortality and eternal life is like this. If right now you put your hand up and look at it, you would say, that is my hand. You know it is your hand. But if tonight you go to bed and you are dreaming, you might find yourself holding up your hand again and look at it and realize, wait a minute, this is a dream. My body is asleep in my bed at home. But yet here I am looking at a hand that I can touch. And then you look around you and you see a whole world of marvelous sights. And you can no longer deny, where am I right now? Well, that is the mystery of heaven, the kingdom of heaven within us, as scriptures wrote. For now, it is alright though if you don't have these experiences this intensely, for I already know through God-given insights that it will all become easier to grasp once the time is right for you. And sometimes that simply means when one passes on physically. But now that you are here and alive, may I tell you, the crucifixion has happened to you. Your soul has been crucified to the body, and now the resurrection shall come to you. When? I do not know. But this is your destiny. You will know everlasting life and go on exploring the wonders of God's universe for all of eternity. I hope it can dawn on you the glory that is in store for you. This physical world will try and hold you occupied with fleeting things, but your true inheritance is yet to be revealed. So do not be dismayed and let not your heart be troubled. Find out who you really are, and God shall rush to you and hold you and embrace you. You're all the everlasting children of the Most High. Now dreams are God's revelation to mankind. It is how he set up the whole universe before dying to rise his own creation into individual expressions of himself. It is smart on the highest order. No mortal could comprehend it or copy physically what he has done. But this spirit of life had set up ways so it will find its way back to individual realization of itself. One of them being dreams, to remind itself of who it really is. Now this is what Neville Goddard had to say about it decades ago. Now we are told in the first chapter of John 11:13, he is speaking of an entirely different kind of birth. And those who believe in his name will be born, not of blood, nor the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. Not born in any way that this is, the physical body is born. Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, only spirit. When you are born, you are self-begotten. You have actually no parents. You come right out of a grain, the mystery of the grain of wheat that falls into the ground. If it doesn't fall into the ground, it remains alone. If it falls into the ground, it bears much fruit. The mystery of life through death, for God actually died to become you, to become me. Now that's a very fascinating point that he made, but it's highly spiritually charged. Obviously we cannot take this all from a physical point of view, but yet these things will be revealed to you in other dimensions of our being. And when we use that term, we are talking about when you are asleep at night. When your mind, your consciousness is actually observing different realities altogether. They do exist. Now these divine powers have been shown to me. Where right now I can imagine success, but it seems to take time. Surely one day it manifests, but it always takes a bit of time. But in those other realms in imagination, instantly things become objective facts, which is incredible. It is absolutely amazing. Sadly, I cannot share these experiences with others. I can only tell them that they did happen to me and I've seen it happen. I could think of something and instantly I was there. I could think of a beautiful field and instantly I was in a giant field. I could think of the past I lived physically speaking and instantly I was standing in my old home and saw myself and friends from a long time ago. I was observing and walking through memories and visions as if they were objective facts to my sight. That is incredible. That is mysterious. It hints at the glory of the true spiritual reality that is hidden from view for most of us. With each passing day, I can sense I am zooming in more and more on the truth of eternal life, and the more I do so, the more silly it becomes to even hold any thought about physicality, as it is, because instead the only focus becomes, let me create some things for the world that I'm passionate about, and then I'll withdraw my attention from physicality, which is another way of saying, then I die, then I pass on. It's just withdrawing your own attention from this realm, because right now we are operating in this realm through the body. And that's why we're bound to the laws of physics in this realm, temporarily. But it's not the only realm and part to your life. You see, this has happened to me regularly over the last few months even, is where I fall asleep and then I wake up in a totally different world. One of them being was the last one I had where I was aware that I wasn't inside this physical body. I was in a totally different world. It seemed like I could meet other people with devices that don't even exist on this planet at all. And they showed me this earth, and in front of the earth was a giant tree, you could say, again symbolic for the tree of life. But it burned up. The tree burned. The whole planet was burning. And I remember very clearly, because I was aware of this dimension, I said to myself, is the earth coming to an end? If so, then I must be dead. Well, then I'll stay here. I did exactly what Neville Goddard suggested people will do if they become aware that they are in the so-called dream world, to just take control of it. Well, in that moment I was in control and I said, I want to stay here then. I don't care, it feels greater here, it's more interesting over here. Sadly though, I got blasted back into my body. That's the only way I can describe this. It was like I was forced to wake up over here for now, and it heavily ties into these so-called near-death experiences that people describe all the time, where they say they were outside of their body because their physical body was actually temporarily dead. And they knew they were outside of it, and some of them even said, I rather stayed over there, but I was told, or at least perhaps forced to go back into the body for now, because we would say it wasn't my time yet. I guess that might be very true. Unless we commit suicide, I mean, for all of us, perhaps it isn't our time yet to leave this realm if we still find ourselves in this place. But now that we are here, we want to just study these mysteries for ourselves, because what happens is that it takes away many of the fears you have concerning this physical life. The greatest fear being the fear of the unknown, the fear of death, because death is the great unknown. But yet these visions of mine, these experiences so peculiar and so highly mystical, where I know that I'm walking around with a totally different body, a spiritual body, for lack of a better word, have hinted and proved to me that there are other dimensions that truly exist, because I can say in those moments at times, with honesty, I am aware that I'm using a body, that's clear, while I'm here in this dimension that I don't recognize necessarily. And it's not my physical life either, it's somewhere totally else. Where am I? How is this possible? I would sometimes wonder to myself while there. But not in a confused or really scared, uncomfortable way. I would be like, how is this possible? This is pretty cool. And I would look around and I see this whole different world. This is so hard to describe what I actually saw, because it's like it would have to be painted or something, because everything looked so much more interesting and beautiful, more vivid, that it's hard to convey through physical language. I can only hint at it, and other people are trying to hint at it as well, that there is more to life than just this physical aspect we normally observe and accept and go through. And that is how you can overcome the fear of the unknown in the case of death. Because many people are afraid, that's why they go panic buying and go crazy during times of chaos globally. Of course, at times we might lose our balance and panic for a little bit, but it's better to get back to the true reality of your eternal nature. That yes, this physical body can get hurt, but it's okay. Of course, we don't want it to get hurt, but it's just the physical side of me that can get hurt, not the immortal spiritual side of me. So, and since the physical self always has to turn back to dust anyway, I might as well embrace my eternal nature now that I'm becoming aware of it. And this is very important. Now, somebody asked me, will there be a live review after you die, was their question. Well, many people have spoken about this concept in near-death experiences of theirs. Now, recently I talked to someone who also mentioned this concept, and my idea about it is as follows. A life review sounds to me simply as a moment in which your own consciousness can reflect on what was learned. There's no space for me to consider eternal hellfire for evil things done physically. The real hell exists inside our own minds, whenever we believe we deserve to be in one. But just as powerfully, we can also take the kingdom of heaven by storm and demand the best of ourselves and live up to it. Notice how I say demand the best of ourselves. We don't demand it of others, we don't demand it of God, because a God outside of ourselves, that is, because God exists within us. So I demand it of myself. I want to live up to my own highest good, and then you can never go wrong. So the people who have gone wrong, yes, they might have some horrifying things gonna happen to them once they pass away. The reason for that being is that their own consciousness is gonna create their own hell that they're gonna experience. So the more negative your focus is, even outside of the body, the more hellish, you could say, the afterlife would become. But they can set themselves free once they discover their true nature and oneness with life, and then they can redeem themselves. This is how it happens for every one of us. But maybe we don't all do as crazy things as others. But it doesn't matter. We shouldn't compare ourselves to that. Just live up to your own highest good while you're here, with the time you have. Now, another thing that people sometimes wonder about is that they have a lot of nightmares, so they don't really like being in those other dimensions that I talk about or others talk about. I would have to say, well, let's suppose you were in a room and in front of you is a door, and I stand next to you and I say, if you enter this room you have crazy experiences, nightmares, horrifying visions and such, but you can calm the storm of madness down through simply being aware that it is not real and you are in control. You are a co-creator with God. You have been given the power to control your own consciousness, and therefore all these nightmares you have can be stopped by you yourself. You are not a victim. Now, this room being the door into your own dream realm. Some people have nightmares all the time, so they might become scared of even falling asleep. And if I tell them, well, those are the realms, part of those realms of everlasting life, you might be like, but it's scary over there, it's creepy, unnerving. Well, if you really know that you are an embodiment of God and that the power and wisdom of God is inside of you, you can overcome these demons of the mind, because the Bible's talking about that all the time. To ask God for strength to overcome your enemies, and we always say the enemies are those of your own mind. So it's also those nightmares you have are the enemies that you can overcome by a fuller realization of God itself inside of your own heart, because then you start to awaken the power to overcome it all, to direct your mind, and then you can get rid of those nightmares once and for all. Now, after I've explained to you that you are God yourself, if you then dare to enter the room and do what I just said, you will discover with great joy your freedom in spirit. Now, let's suppose you were in that same room. Nobody was with you. You see the door towards your dream world and enter it, and all hell breaks loose, and you panic and want to get away, but don't know how. What will you do? Well, that is how it goes for most people. They don't know what to do, and that is part of a universal form of ignorance we have. Basically, if you simply study consciousness early in life or late in life, it won't matter in the end. What you will discover is that you are in total control when you are outside of your body. It is not comparable to human life. It is inconceivable, but that is what we try to do. Measure immortality and the afterlife from a limited physical point of view. These things all go beyond the physical. That's all you have to understand, because life is actually a state of consciousness, and therefore immortality is also a state of consciousness, but it's not from a physical point of view. We are not saying physically you'll be immortal and live forever. We are saying your eternal self is the spiritual self, the real self that reveals itself already through the dreams that you have at night. And if you take control of that aspect of your life, once the body drops and turns back to dust, you're gonna step into those realms and you're gonna have some fun if you've taken this to heart. Now, the final point I wanted to go over is, what about people that do evil things? Will they burn in hell forever? Many would say certain people deserve that. Well, my own take on that is as follows. It is a very human physical tendency to want revenge, to want justice for something we deem horrifying. But in the end, it's not even our business how other people are behaving, since we can't control them. They gotta figure it out for themselves, and of course their so-called hell would end up being realizing the wrong things they did, and the suffering they will have to endure before they forgive themselves for what they have done. Their punishment is the best in the end, since the pain someone inflicts on us is many times lower than the pain we cause by our own wrong thinking and bad behavior. Once we realize how to do better, it's like a shock to the soul for how we have behaved in the past. This is how the universe has set it up. So yes, they will be punished, but not in the way that most people hope they are. They will be punished by the depths of their own soul, becoming aware of what they've done wrong and then having to redeem themselves. Basically, what you want to grasp is the more you can tune into greatness inside consciousness and make it your own, the better off you will be. For even if you were to drop dead physically before you think, I didn't achieve my dream, well, life is eternal, and so it is noble and the most important of all to control consciousness. For even after death, we will go towards where we want to go. So lack of control means higher risk of not entirely exercising your divine powers over there either. Perhaps that is why humans are born in the end, to learn to control their own consciousness, which is an individual manifestation of the spirit of life. And you see, the spirit of life existed before we physically were here, and since we're part of that spirit of life, we will also be still alive when the body breaks down, and when it returns to dust. We just might not recognize it from our current point of view, but just hold on to the truth that life is one and life is eternal. It's been here for many, many years, and apparently it will stay here for many more years to come. And all along we were part of that life, that spirit of the universe. Yes, you may not remember anything from before you were in the body. You may not comprehend anything after the body. That still doesn't mean that it's not true either. We just have to keep an open mind and stay curious about the revelations that come to us as we open up our minds Godward more and more. Now, if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing to receive inspirational videos on a regular basis. And with that being said, dear viewer, never forget that we are the dreamers.